My brothers and I were really excited to see the movie Catwoman starring Halle Berry. After all, we loved Batman. But the movie was bad, like real bad. Lost nearly $20 million bad, despite having a respected actress, a big budget, and a solid franchise. That's because no matter what, you need a good product. While you can tweet or post as much as you want, there are better ways to attract customers. That's why I'm excited to talk to copywriter, speaker, and absolute delight, Emily Aborn, today. She gives us 4 marketing tactics that don't rely on social media. And for members, we talk about why you need a strong personal brand. So let's dive into it. All right, I'm here with Emily Aborn. Emily, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for asking and starting with that question and also having me. Three
Awesome.
thank yous.
So stoked to have you on. We had a great pre-show. We're going to have an even better post-show for members, so stay tuned for or sign up for that. But let's dive in to the first question here. This is something that's been a constant struggle for me, if longtime listeners will know. I believe that you need something good, like a good product or service or content for it to do well, but that doesn't seem to be like the whole like field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. Doesn't seem to work. Why do I need to market my work?
Well, the reason we need to market our work is because if you create something and then don't tell anybody about it, they're not going to know where to find it. And I would say that that has always been the case. Like if you think even to kind of like brick and mortar and the stores that it was location, 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 right? So now marketing kind of acts as our new location, location, location. Like we have to position ourselves to be in front of people that want said product or service. However, I want to say I'm super glad that you started there because I think that is a really important place to start with your marketing is having a really, really good product or service and also being the kind of person that like follows through with the delivery of that product or service. So the two have to go hand in hand. And when I saw you have that in like our little prep notes, I was so excited because I was like, that is 100% like that's where we all have to start internally before we start projecting what we offer out into the world.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad that you agree with that. Because it's really like, so I mostly help podcasters and they're like, how do I grow my show? And I always say like the first thing you need is a good mission statement. Like if you could spend $1 million on ads, but like if you're not reaching your core audience, you'll get a lot of first downloads and then everybody will leave because it's not for them. So
Mm-hmm.
like you need to make sure that you have something that's for the people you're trying to reach. So yeah, so thank you for that. Also, location, location, location. Spot on analogy, right? Like people wanted that spot in the mall, right? Or like near
Right.
Macy's or whatever because like they'd get a lot of foot traffic.
And
Awesome.
yeah.
So okay, so with that, have a good product. You need to tell people about it. How would you define marketing? And I'll do like a couple of like is it something? Well, let's start here. Is it something that I need to pay for? Like, is it marketing because I'm paying for it, or what's your general definition?
Okay, that's a great question. And I don't always think that it involves paying for something. So there are going to be, of course, cases where that is different. I had a retail shop at one time, and a lot of my marketing was paying for like Facebook ads and paying for print advertising and paying to sponsor things. So different, I mean, there are so marketing is a huge term. However, I think that what we miss is that marketing is really a conversation. So it's twofold. First, it's really understanding where the person is who you're trying to speak to. Before Joe and I recorded this interview, I asked like, who is the person that we're speaking to in this conversation? Because I want to make sure that the information we're sharing applies directly to them. And then it's just sharing like what you've created, what you're really excited about, what you have going on, but it has to be like a two-way street. So it's like, okay, I'm really excited about this thing, but why does it matter to this person? you know? So marketing is kind of, I like to think of like content, marketing, all of that stuff. It's a bridge. It's a bridge from what I have or how I can help to what that other person needs on the other side. And I guess that's like the broadest definition. And then you can think of all of the little pieces that fit in there, right? There's digital marketing, there's uh, in-person marketing, print marketing, like I said. So, I mean, I'm not going to go on because we all know the general concept of marketing, but that's how I like to define it. It's really, and then once you're really good at it, it's just talking about what you're excited about. Like it's just talking about the things you've created because you're now speaking exactly to the person that wants that and is going to get excited about it too.
Mm, yeah, that first step is so crucial, right? Like if we're creating our little framework here, right? It's like have a good product or service, know who you're speaking to, right? This is advice that's come up a couple times. I interviewed Nikki Rausch,
Yes,
and then
I love her.
yeah, she's great, right? And then Gia and Claire from they wrote the book Forget the Funnel, and they all say the same thing. Like you need to talk to your target audience. You need to understand their problem. And finally, the bridge thing you said, like my friend Chris Lemma has this thing called the bridge framework, well, he calls it, right? Where it's like, he basically talks about how there's a river and on the other side of the river, there's a record store and there's a bunch of people who want to get to the record store. And you're standing on the other side and you're like, hey, you can't cross here, but I can show you where the bridge to get across is. And so like that, what you said really resonated with me because it's like, it's a very concrete way of looking at it.
Yeah, I sometimes say like you wouldn't if I were to ask you like how do I get to your office? You wouldn't start by describing the inside of the office, right? You'd start by saying, "Well, where are you coming from? Like where are you starting?" And then I can help you get to where I am.
Yeah. So good. As a former programmer and someone who has seen countless landing pages who are like, this was built with React. I'm like, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one. You are excited about how you built it. The only thing that your potential customers want to know is, will this solve my problem? So, okay, not necessarily something we need to pay for, but like I've been hearing a lot, actually, especially a year or so ago, people are coming on my show and like, you need to be on Pinterest, you need to be on TikTok, and I've resisted TikTok for a long time because I'm an elder millennial and it scares and confuses me, right? But I've started putting videos on TikTok and like they're fine, they get views, they get comments. I don't see the path from TikTok to like $2,000 a month coaching client though. So like is like just the virtue of making social media content, can we consider that marketing? Is it something else?
I do think that is a piece of our marketing. And to your point, like I actually don't think that everybody should be on every single platform. I think you should find it's important to find the ones that your ideal clients are on for sure. And to be truthful, like yours and my ideal clients are probably on TikTok. So then like the next piece of that equation is, where do I actually like showing up and where am I going to be able to show up consistently? Because I don't think that showing up on all of the platforms inconsistently is really beneficial to your marketing at all. Like I say, pick like your top 3 favorite places to show up and do those with as much consistency as you possibly can. When I say consistency, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but I don't mean frequency. So I don't mean you have to show up every single day on Instagram. I actually do tend to show up, I think, if not every day on Instagram, 5 days a week. But that's the frequency I've chosen for myself, and that feels really good. I don't email people every day. I email people once a week. I don't do a podcast every day. I do a podcast once a week. So consistency looks different depending on like what you're choosing and where you are. But I would say like pick your top 3 where your ideal clients are there and you also like actually enjoy being there, because there's so much to choose from and it gets so overwhelming, like actually kind of sickening sometimes when I think about all the places that we could be, quote unquote, or should be showing up.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning the consistency is not frequency thing. This is something I say all the time. Like, my clients will say like, well, don't I have to someone said I should do a daily podcast or 3 times a week or do I need to be weekly? And I'm like, no, you just need to show up predictably so that your audience can form a habit around what you're doing. Is at least with podcasting, right? With TikTok, it might just be like, it might be different. That scares and confuses me.
I'm scared and confused by it too. I'm also an elder millennial.
I nudged somebody accidentally and I was like, is this like Facebook poking? Am I like going to get in trouble? I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, no.
They were very cool about it though. I still don't really know what my Gen Z brother-in-law was like, oh, this just means that like you're letting them know you're online. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But why? But why?
Right.
That's funny.
So that's fantastic. I'll say like LinkedIn felt like that to me for a while. And then like they changed something and now all I see is like, I was teaching my daughter how to ride a bike. Here's what that taught me about multi-level marketing schemes. And I'm like, why don't you just hang out with your daughter instead of like trying to make it a lesson?
That's actually a really good example. And the way that I've noticed my own LinkedIn, like I went at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm going to go super heavy into LinkedIn. And I tried. And then I was like, I really hate this. Like, I'm actually just agitated by it. I'm agitated by reading the content on it. So I changed the way that I was using it entirely. And I now only take my podcast and turn, like, I'm backtracking. So I'm going back to like, I started at the beginning and I'm going forward. So I'm taking old episodes and just repurposing them into LinkedIn articles. And then I get tons of engagement. And it's like more enjoyable for me. I don't have to show up regularly. I just do one whenever I'm like feeling like it. And it's changed the experience. So that's the other way to think about it. You don't always use every platform the same. Like I'm certainly not going to write an article on Instagram, right? Because people will be like, boring. I want the flashy graphics. So that's another thing that's important. Like what kind of content, A, do I enjoy consuming? B, do I enjoy creating? And C, is going to resonate with people. So you really have to think like, and that's the weeds that I don't really want us to get into in this conversation, because marketing is a lot more than social media. But a lot of entrepreneurs I speak to, and I'm sure you've heard this too, podcasters, we get in our heads thinking digital marketing is like the only thing we have, right? Like, so online, social media, that's all we got. And that's kind of the message that keeps getting delivered over and over and over again, which I think then marketers just market to us their services.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because like for a while I joined Twitter on April Fool's Day, 2007. It is not lost on me that I joined it on that day. But I remember like in the early days, like pre-Oprah talking about it days, me and like just random people would live tweet Yankee games, and it's like the most community I felt in like not being on a college campus. But I used to be able to like tweet links to stuff and it would get traction and people would join my mailing list or they would sign up or whatever. And it's not like that anymore. And I think like part of what solopreneurs and small business owners struggle with is like, that felt like the easy button for a while, but it's not. So like, I mean, don't we need social media to promote our work, or should we really be using social media to promote our work? It sounds like maybe there's a different way to leverage social media.
I don't want to throw it out entirely. It is valuable. I think it's really good for showing brand presence and also like kind of keeping yourself current with what other people are doing in your industry as well. And not to compare, but I think it is important to be aware of what's going on in the world in your selected industry, right? But I just don't like to see us putting all of our weight on it. And like to your point, when I had my retail shop in 2014, I could do a Facebook post saying I was having a sale and it would actually work. Like I didn't have to pay for an ad. It just could be a post and it would work and get people into my shop. Nowadays, I can't even tell you. I don't use it to try to like get one-to-one clients. It
Hmm.
sometimes works for local events or workshops or like free offerings, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't tend to work for me getting one-to-one clients. I will say though that like having a brand presence on social media over time shows people like I'm still here, I'm still taking clients, I'm still in business. Like that's what it's kind of about for me. It's like about having a little, as they call it, there. But it's gotten harder and it's gotten noisier and it's gotten more, you have to do it this way and you can't do it that way. So
Hmm.
I think that's why we all are struggling a little bit more, because it's been changed over time drastically. Like like if you think back to Blogger or Blogspot, that was like the first thing I
Mm.
did. It
Yep.
was so easy. I just write a little blog and like all these people are reading my little day in the life of a 16-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
Now that is, nobody is reading my blog in the same way. I guarantee that.
My blogger Blogspot. I think I tried Zenga and LiveJournal too. It was all
Yes.
very sad. But I'll talk about that more in the pro show. The other thing I want to mention in the pro show, right? Which, if you want to get ad-free extended episodes early, you can sign up over at streamlined.fm/join. But you talk about good for showing brand presence on social media. I've had like a little bit of beef with like you need to pick one thing to talk about on social media. And in the pro show, we're going to talk about the importance of a strong personal brand. And so, again, I'm really excited for this conversation. So if you want to become a member, again, that's over at streamlined.fm/join. But to drive your point home, Emily, I recently read an article, an interview with Sarah Koenig, the host of Serial, and she said it's gotten really hard to promote Serial. Like it's not the way it used to be. There's a lot of noise out there, and I would have said, well, Serial, going back to your consistency point, just kind of happens when it happens, right? And so people don't know
Mhm.
when to expect new episodes. But bands have said the same thing, right? Like they've had a hard time promoting shows on social media, and they've had to cancel shows. And so you said things have changed, and I don't want to belabor this point because I want to get to the real, like, juicy, actionable advice. But I think you're right. I can't. The only thing, and let me know what you think about this, is there's just like ads and algorithms are maybe they're like prioritizing certain things and showing us what they want us to see instead of our natural timeline.
I also think people, I mean, I think we think that the algorithm is more controlled than it is, but the
Hmm.
algorithm is learning what people's eyeballs are fixating on for longer periods of time and then just showing more of that. So that's particularly why I think it's hard for business owners, because people don't want, I'm not looking at ads for long periods of time. Some of them get me, I will say this, because they're really good at what they do. But I'm certainly not that level of like ad creation over here in my little entrepreneurial world. And that's the problem. Like we're just trying to capture attention and we're up against like some steep competition, people that are creating like full videos to capture people's attention. So I think that the algorithm, quote unquote, that we're up against is actually just like what people are interested in. And sometimes that's not what we're interested in sharing with them, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially because like I guess it's kind of like promoting your business on social media. Going back to like, are you aligned with the right person? Is just kind of like running into the middle of Central Park and being like, "Hey, I can help you with podcasts," and people are like, "I'm just
Yes.
trying to walk my dog." Like,
Like, great. Show me a cat meme.
right. And to your point, I will say, for last week my Facebook feed was like all recommended pages, which like kills me. I'm like, am I following? Did everybody block me and now I'm just seeing memes?
Yes.
But I will say I would like linger on it and read it, and then I'd be like, don't show me this anymore. And I'm like, I wonder which of these signals is stronger, the fact that I actually spent my time here, or the
Yeah.
fact that I'm telling it I don't want to see it anymore.
Yep. And I did the same thing with my face. I'm like, stop showing me notifications of when this person posts, but I actually look at it when they post. So Facebook is like, hello, who are you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your eyes say one thing and your brain
Yes.
says something else.
Yes.
So with that, let's talk about kind of what are some better ways to market my work. And to recap what we've talked about so far, it's you want a good offering, you want to have conversations with people to know where they're at. So assuming I have those two things, what's next?
I want to start right out of the gate with one that I don't think that we put enough attention on, and that is collaboration, which you and I are doing right now. So podcast guesting and podcast hosting is an excellent example of collaboration. If you are a podcaster, being a guest on other people's podcasts is like one of the best things you can do because so right now, Joe has given me a great gift. I am in this guesting seat, and he has said, here's access to other people's ears. And not just other people's ears, but I have put in time and hours and consistency with these people. And like now I'm inviting Emily in to come share that with me. And so your listener is like, oh, we trust Joe. He's never steered us wrong, right? He always brings us great guests. So this is like a huge gift for me. Now, in my seat, I will also want to give a huge gift back to you and to the people listening. Like, I don't want them to walk away and be like, that was terrible and I did not learn anything. So like I take collaborations pretty seriously, which is why I asked you, like, do you have any prep you want me to do? You know, what kind of things can I be in for? And I don't just treat it like another event in my day or another calendar invite, which I would say is like my number one thing with collaborations. Like approach them from a give mentality where, and I know that you and I have talked about this, but a lot of people just approach it from a take. Like, okay, here's what I want to share with people so I can sell them this. So collaboration is a fantastic way to start. Podcast collaborations are not the only opportunity, like doing an event with somebody else. Something as simple as, and I love doing this with my own social media, shouting out like another business owner that you love or that you collaborated with in some little tiny way. Like even your hairdresser is a great way to kind of like shine the light on somebody else and give back, right? So collaborating with other people in whatever that looks like for you, and we can chat out more ways if you want, but I think that is like such a missed marketing opportunity, and they also don't approach it with the weight that I would just love to see them approach it with, like it's a super important part of our marketing. And it's one of those pieces that I think kind of went away during the pandemic when everybody was like by themselves. So coming back together and like, how can we like work together to create something new, to create something exciting and big for people?
Yeah. I'm going to say I love that. Because first of all, over the summer, it worked for me like gangbusters, right? I did a few collaborations or like talked at virtual events, and I really brought it. And I usually add like 1 to 2 email addresses a day to my email list. And over that period, I added like 200, which was like all within a couple of weeks. It was doing collaborations, working with people, and like you said, give, like be generous with your time and your knowledge. And that's going to be way better than being like stingy or like, oh, well, you have to pay me for that part or whatever. Like that doesn't work anymore. That I can tell you, right? If you're like, pay me for the secret sauce, there's enough not secret sauce on the internet that you need to give people a reason to work with you or come into your audience and orbit.
And some other like little ideas for, especially if speaking is exciting to you. There's lots of local organizations like your Chamber of Commerce or SCORE, or like we have a local entrepreneurship organization that's always looking for like speakers, and they want either free or very low cost speakers because they're nonprofits, right? So I love being able to step in that way. And actually, I don't expect clients or business from it, but a lot of times it helps get me clients and business. So I think that just like thinking outside the box in what collaboration ideas sound exciting for you, but like partnering up. I mean, you think about it, you're taking 1 + 1 and you're just like increasing your impact a lot. You're creating something totally new, and it's like a ripple effect.
Yes, yes. So I want to put a bow on everything you just said with this one example. I do a local podcast with my friends Liam and Eric, where we interview people in Chester County, Pennsylvania. That's where I live, and so we interview nonprofits and business leaders about how we can improve business and improve the county and do more for the community. And those episodes maybe get like 30 downloads per episode, which someone just starting out, that sounds amazing. I'm comparing it to like my past work, and so it's lower than I'd like it to be. But we host like quarterly in-person networking events where 50 to 75 people sign up
Wow.
and show up. So like don't underestimate local, right? I work on the internet. I can work with anybody anywhere. I don't know. There's something about being, there's an immediate bond or kinship with someone when you have like some sort of shared background. One of my biggest clients right now found me online, but is actually local to me, which is pretty wild. So everything you said there, I like co-sign 100%.
Okay.
So not that you need me to co-sign. You're
No,
the
I
expert
do
here, like you
actually.
said,
I
right?
actually do. So that's why I'm glad you did.
Uh, okay, so let's get into some actionable advice. When we first talked about this, which I want to shout out Podmatch on this, right? You talked about collaborating and podcast guesting. I've been using Podmatch for the last 6 months, like almost exclusively to find guests and go on podcasts, and it's been great. Like,
Okay, I
yeah,
co-sign on that. I
nice.
have started using Podmatch and I love it. And I also, yeah, it's very awesome and it has a great community feature too.
Yes, yes. And so if you want to do podcast guesting or find more guests like Podmatch, I'll have a link in the show notes. It'll be in the description for this episode. And then the episode number, which I don't think I've said yet. All the show notes will be over at streamline.fm/437. So when we kind of hash this idea out on Podmatch in the chat, we talked about kind of 4 out of the box marketing ideas. Now, I don't want to put you in a box by limiting you to 4, but I do want to talk about, we've talked about collaboration and shouting out and local stuff. But give us a few options, then we can get into like, how do we decide what to do first?
Okay. So we started with collaboration. I think the next one we spoke to a little bit, which is like having really good customer service. And I'll tell you why this has anything to do with your marketing. Because people talk and they talk about you. And if they had a great experience with you, they're going to tell their friends. So I think that customer service is like one of those one of those pieces of our marketing that tends to fly under the radar. And I don't think that we should be doing that. Like we're like focusing all on this digital marketing and forgetting that like actually the customers, we need to actually like deliver on the work and do a great job for them. So what I did with my customer service, I think it was last year, like maybe at the beginning of last year, I sat down and I mapped out what it looks like when a customer actually comes to work with me from like beginning, from when they fill out that contact form on my website, or even before that. How do they get to my website, right? Did someone tell them to go to my website, and what's that
Mm-hmm.
experience like? So I kind of like mapped it out from beginning to end and making sure that it's like consistent from client to client, and that I'm also tailoring it to like how their brain might be different, right? Because like some people do really well with written explanations, some people do really well with video explanations. So I kind of like thought all that through, even like gifting and thank you cards and like every little piece to make my customer experience exceptional. And it's one of the things I get like complimented on the most. Like I'll give you a tiny little example. I like to say, like, how can you think of ways to hug your customers? That was a book I read, I don't know, when I was like 15 years old, and it stuck with me. So I think Jack Mitchell is the author of that book. How can you think of little ways to hug your customers? And it really comes down to like listening to what they say and then like sending them some little spark from the conversation. So one of my clients recently, she actually is in Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Yeah, and I asked her like what her animal was, like not spirit animal, just like what animal do you like feel
Hmm.
like you associate yourself with? She said a manatee. And I was like, okay, that's funny. She said she drew this big mural on her wall when she was a kid that was a manatee, and she's just like been obsessed with manatees. So I'm at the post office one day and I find a book of I'm buying stamps, and don't you know they had a book of manatee stamps? And I was like, oh, I'm buying her a book of this manatee stamp. So I sent her like a little card with a book of manatee stamps. And she's like, I don't know how you remembered that, but that was amazing. And it like really stuck out to her. So I'm not saying you have to go like buy somebody a book of stamps, but thinking of ways to infuse your process with like those little pieces of customer service, that's what helps people to tell about your products and services and the experience they had. And like that is a huge piece of marketing.
Yeah, it's about surprising and delighting, right? Like
Yes.
when I have a client who says something like off the cuff and personal to me, um, not like TMI, but like, oh yeah, no, I can't do it that night because my son has a football game or whatever, right? Write that down, because next time I talk to him, I'm gonna be like, hey, did your son win the football game? And like that little like, oh man, I'm like an actual human being to you and not just like a bag of money, is like goes such a long way.
Yeah. I love focusing on our customer service, and I love those little human touches, like sending them a dog treat that's specifically addressed to the name of their dog because you
Mm,
asked, right?
yeah. Yeah, nice. I need to become more of an animal I'm not an this is the worst. Most people will tell you this is like the worst thing about me is that I don't like animals, but I need to remember that most I know, and I did research on you, and so I know you have a pup. Uh and
No hard feelings, because actually, I don't know if before I had a dog, I was as obsessed with dogs. And now every single one, every animal, I'm like, touch me.
all right, so collaboration, good customer service. What's next?
Okay, we talked about this one, but I think it's a part of our marketing, and it is consistency. And I don't actually just mean, you know what? I don't actually just mean consistency in like where you show up in your marketing and how. I mean consistency in when you say you're going to do something that you do it. So, for example, I'm sure you've had this experience with a podcast guest where they cancel once and then they cancel again, and then like third time you finally get on the interview, right? I get it, life happens, but the when you're like thinking about planning everything out and putting all these appointments in your calendar, making sure that you're going to be able to show up for what you committed to, or if you join a group like a networking group or an organization, making sure that you are being consistent in going to those after hours or those breakfasts or those luncheons. Like what you say you're going to do, do. I'll tell you what. I used to have a community, like a membership community. And I knew I could tell you if I looked at a list of attendees, I could be like, oh, these 5 people are not going to show up. Like I could tell you the names of the people who constantly would not show up, but would sign up for everything. So
Mm-hmm.
consistency is about like, not, of course, like I said, life happens, but be the person where that's the exception, not the rule, right? So that a little bit looks like not taking on more than you can actually feasibly do too, like being really realistic with yourself, like okay, maybe I can't do 10 Zoom calls in one day
Right.
and feel good at the end of the day. So I think that consistency, and then you apply that to like your digital marketing, right? And your collaborations, and just like it needs to be the current of your business. And it really does. I think like it's kind of like the motor of your marketing. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and I don't want to sound too much like an Italian stereotype here, but I grew up in New York. I'm Italian. My brothers and I would all say to each other, "Word is bond." Like if we are gonna say something,
Yeah.
then we better do it, because that's your word's so important. So I love that.
And you know how they say, consistency isn't showing up 100% every day. It's if you're feeling 50%, it's showing up that 100% of that 50%. I do agree with that. Like, we don't all have unicorn, fantastic, wonderful
Mm-hmm.
days. So, but when you do show up, like, show up with the best you got, no matter if that's 20% or if that is 100%. I really do. And I also think being honest and upfront with people, like if you're not showing up 100%, goes a long way because people give you a lot of grace, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just to I want to be cognizant of our time here, but like one of my coaching clients, like we wanted to meet before this thing, and I was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I can't meet at this time because my wife is working and my kids are home." And he was like, "Dude, I'm a dad. I get it. Like, let's pick a time that works best for both of us." And so, don't feel like you need to hide stuff to like to look professional, right? Like that was a
Right.
mistake I made in my youth. Um, Being professional is being honest, right?
Right.
So awesome. Okay, and number 4. I'm sensing a theme here that I'll state explicitly after you say the fourth one to make sure it's right.
Yeah, you're right. It also starts with a C, but I think we're going to keep this one as a little bit of a teaser because I want to talk about cohesion and how your branding and like just creating a really cohesive look and feel for your whole business is super important to your marketing. It is very confusing when somebody is all over the map, and it honestly is shooting yourself in the foot when it comes to your marketing because people don't know which way is up, nor do you know which way is up. You're promoting something new every week and talking about something different every week. So cohesion is something I really, really find important, and it doesn't come overnight. So sometimes you do have to throw spaghetti at the wall, kind of feel out where you're going with your business or with your podcast, and then start building that like cohesive, aligned message over time.
Yes, and as somebody who has suffered from throwing spaghetti at the wall, and not just when he's cooking dinner, I don't know if this is that a thing that you know what to do. Like the spaghetti's ready if you throw it at the wall and it
I
sticks.
used to do it on the ceiling, but
Nice.
yes.
Yes. So I think the difference between constantly promoting something every week and like doing stuff to see what works is I know people who will make a grand announcement every time. Hey, I'm switching lanes. I'm planning to do this. And then the next blog post they write, they're planning to do something else. And I'm like, what
Yes.
happened to the thing you were doing, right?
I am so with you. I like to just do a thing and then be like, oh, look, I did this thing. Here you
Yeah.
go. But yeah, I'm
Yes.
a big like experiment behind the scenes a little bit if you can. And then when you're ready to bring it all together with cohesion, you can throw it out into the world. Not perfection, not to be confused with perfection.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We never see like the first version of a medication, right? We see like the one that's
Thank
worked, right?
God.
Imagine, right? Okay, awesome. As we wrap up our time here, in the main show at least, how do I decide what to do first? First of all, the theme that I sensed is that all of these things are within your control. They don't require a huge budget or like a social media strategy or anything. Like these are things that you can just do to give yourself a better business that people are going to want to refer other people to, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think they all start from within a little bit, right? So I would say, I know you're going to ask like what the first step is. I think the first step is looking at who your ideal client is or ideal customer and looking at what you offer and making sure that is what they actually want. I think that's like first step. But then I think look at these four: collaboration. We talked about collaboration, customer service, cohesion, and consistency. And look at those, yeah, and decide which one in your business you kind of like want to focus on first. Like which one just excites you, because you know what? Anything that excites you is going to help you to get a little bit of steam for the ones that are not so exciting, right? So sit down and ask yourself like which one excites you most. If it's collaboration, who can I start like reaching out to collaborate? Can I maybe join Podmatch and just see what it's all about? Or do I need to talk to Joe and ask him who would make good podcasts for me to collaborate with? So look at those, see which one sounds most exciting, and then just take like one little step in the right direction.
This has been amazing, Emily. Emily Aborn. This has been amazing. Uh, in the pro show, we're going to have what I am confident is an equally as amazing, if not more amazing, conversation. I don't want to say more amazing. I don't want to make like the non-members feel left out. This is a very complete show. I'm just really excited to keep talking to you. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Well, since they're already listening to a podcast, I think it's an easy jump over to my podcast, which is Content with Character. And I think our two podcasts go hand in hand very nicely. So that's what I would invite them to do.
Excellent. I will. Well, you should find it wherever you're listening to this right now. I will link it in the show notes, in the description, wherever you're consuming this content, as well as everything we talked about, and a link to become a member. You can find all of that over at streamlined.fm/437. Emily, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. And thank you for listening.
Yes. And thanks to our sponsors. Everyone has been thanked now. So I'm going to sign off. Thanks so much. And until next time, I'll see you out there.